Hello, everyone. My name is Anne-Marie Langlois. I am Manager, Programs and Services, Employment and Accessibility at the Canadian Hard of Hearing Association. And I would like to welcome and thank you for joining us for this employer information session regarding the Accessible Navigation to Employment program. Prior to proceeding, I would like to introduce Mike Glover and Liz Kalin, who will be providing ASL interpretation for us today. You may pin Mike or Liz by clicking on their profile. In addition, we have Kalin Gortz providing CART services for today's session. You may enable this by clicking on the closed caption button on the bottom of the Zoom screen. This event will be recorded. We will do our best to address as many questions as possible in the hour we have together and aim to have you interact with us using the chat function. As questions arise, please add them to the Q&A section by clicking on Q&A on the bottom of your Zoom screen. And these will be reviewed and responded to before we close the session. In the event we do not get to your question, please send it to the project team using the ANTE email that will be included in the chat. We will begin today's event with land acknowledgements of the project partners, the Canadian Hard of Hearing Association, and Mohawk College. I invite my colleague at CHA, Nadine Rahib, Manager, Programs and Services, to begin.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. The Canadian Hard of Hearing Association, CHA, acknowledges that our office, located in Ottawa, is on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. CHA honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. I will hand it over to my ANTE project counterpart, Erica Kaminsky, training specialist from Mohawk College.
Thanks, Nadine. Sorry, everyone, just give me 1 second here. My computer seems to have glitched. Okay. We respectfully recognize that Mohawk College campuses are situated on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant. Back to you, Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Erica. And thank you, Nadine. At this time, I would like to invite CHA's National Executive Director, Richard Plummer, to say a few words.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. At the National Office of CHA, we are excited to be sharing with you today this innovative and collaborative initiative that will help to improve the labor market conditions across Canada for people who are hard of hearing and deaf. Piloting this project in 4 provinces, we will be working with our amazing partners, Mohawk College, the Society of Deaf and Hard of Hearing Nova Scotians, Vancouver Community College, and the Canadian Hard of Hearing Association, Edmonton. We will also be working with some amazing national employers, such as RBC, Lafarge, Connect Hearing, and Loblaw's group of companies. As we kick off this exciting initiative, we're also here today because in reality, there is a problem that we have to try to correct. The reality for many people who are hard of hearing or deaf is that there remains a huge inequity in the labor market, specifically when you look at the statistical evidence. The statistics indicate that only 21% are fully employed and that over 42% are underemployed, and this is truly unacceptable. We also know that employers are struggling to find skilled labor. competent workers, people who are committed and motivated to learn and grow with their company. And the statistics in Canada are indicating that there are approximately over 1 million unfulfilled positions in Canada. This is unacceptable too. And our initiative is directly related to helping to change some of these conditions. Our initiative will focus on 3 strategies: providing upskilling and training opportunities for people who are looking to improve their skill sets and to pursue employment. We're also committed to engaging employers and to understand their needs and provide the tools, resources that will help them create more accessible work environments and to be more disability confident when recruiting individuals from diverse communities. One of the most exciting pieces is that it will create placement opportunities, job placement opportunities that will help to bridge that gap between the supply of talent and the demand of job vacancies that exist. So we're looking forward to working with many of you at the table today and many of who have joined us previously. So we want to thank you. And in particular, we want to thank Service Canada for recognizing the importance for investing in this important issue. So we look forward to working with you, and thank you very much for your time today. I'd like to welcome and pass it over to Emily Ecker, Associate Dean, Community Partnerships and Learning at Mohawk College. And thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and good afternoon, everyone. And many thanks to you for taking the time to join us today. Mohawk College is proud to continue this partnership with CHA on the ANTE project. As a continuation of our employment access framework work that we completed back in the fall, the ANTE project demonstrates the impact of a shared vision among leading organizations who remain focused on improving the employment prospects of deaf and hard of hearing communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Before we move into the presentation and the project details, I wanted to engage the group a little bit, pardon me. And as Richard mentioned, the ANTE program is a national initiative. And with that in mind, I would like those of you joining us today to let us know which province you're joining us from. If you haven't already, you can do that in the chat. BC, rural Alberta, Ontario. Great to see all the provinces represented. Thank you for that. As we move into the presentation, I have a question that you can feel free to respond in the chat at any time. I want you to think about the entry-level positions that you have in your organization. Now think about the types of skills and competencies those jobs require. So really the skills you look for when looking for talent. Feel free to add those skills in the chat as we move to the presentation. We will, firstly, pardon me, Richard already ran over the highlight pieces on this, but just to be perfectly clear, our program partners again are in Ontario, British Columbia, Alberta, and Nova Scotia. And the ANTE program leverages findings from a previous initiative that Mohawk College led called the Employment Access Framework Project. We've included the website there because there's some fantastic resources that employers can access already related to the deaf and hard of hearing community. I do have a couple of slides to share the findings associated with that project. But before I do so, just so that everyone has a sense of the length of the ANTE project, it began December 2022 and will continue through till March 2024. These are the stats that Richard shared already. I think one of the important pieces to highlight again is the unemployment rate for deaf and hard of hearing adults, approximately 32% higher than the national unemployment average. Now, details on the Employment Access Framework project and the findings. We had 3 stakeholders through this project, 2 of them which we surveyed, we included in focus groups, and we interviewed. The first is the deaf and hard of hearing community, and I think sharing their story and the themes that came out from the research explains why we've moved to this second phase. So I'll just pick a couple of them. The first is that barriers to their employment begin at the very early stages of their job search. Self-advocacy for individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing often comes later in their journey, and having someone teach them would be welcome. Self-disclosure was something that came up time and time again in our research, and job seekers who are deaf and hard of hearing oftentimes have mixed approaches on self-disclosure, and it's largely driven by their fear and impacts to their own employment. Deaf and hard of hearing employees don't feel that they can fully and properly express themselves without the support of a competent interpreter. There were also several notations of feelings of isolation in the workplace, particularly when they were the only deaf or hard of hearing employee. And finally, many misconceptions about the community that are limiting to them. We also heard from employers. Not surprisingly, and I think this speaks to employers across the country, most employers have both immediate and longer-term staffing needs that they need to fill, particularly post-pandemic. Employers want to be inclusive, but resources specific to deaf and hard of hearing individuals are limited, and oftentimes they feel ill-equipped. Employers also don't have a strong understanding of how to accommodate someone who's deaf and hard of hearing. And while modern technologies have advanced, adapting those for the workplace and understanding how to use them still needs to progress. Employers who wish to target the deaf and hard of hearing community often struggle with how to do that, how to engage. These are the objectives again, which Richard's already gone over. So I am going to hand it over to Erica to share some highlights and important pieces related to the learner experience.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. So both Anne-Marie and Richard, as well as Emily, have mentioned already the Employment Access Framework project. So that was the catalyst that really helped us understand what employers are looking for in terms of skills, as well as gaps they are currently experiencing in the labor market. So what we've done is we have created the ANTE program to align directly with those skills that were highlighted as necessary for the employers in order to onboard individuals who could be successful in their workplace. So the ANTE program aligned directly with Skills for Success, which is a framework that has been established in order to understand everyday skills, as well as learning and improving life overall. There are 9 courses that the ANTE program offers, again, aligned directly with the 9 Skills for Success competencies. So each of these courses, we anticipate taking approximately 30 hours to complete for each learner. We do have actually approximately 20 learners already in a few of these courses, moving through them at their own pace. And that's something to mention about the ANTE program in general, is that it is self-directed. Learners do need to set aside their own time and manage their own schedules in order to complete the courses. And these 9 courses, once they complete them, they are potentially eligible to go to a 200-hour placement. Now, these courses do consist of collaboration, creativity and innovation, numeracy, writing, problem solving, communication, adaptability, digital, and reading. Each of these courses will have a different set of assessments. Some of those include self-reflection, and others include specific assessments that could be applied to different work experiences. For example, in writing, one of the final assessments is actually crafting a professional email and ensuring that it aligns with the subject, with the intent of the email, that grammar and general formatting is correct and professional. And it really does, I suppose, empower and teach the deaf and hard of hearing learners how to not only communicate effectively, but also communicate with those in the workplace that may not be deaf or hard of hearing. There's an opportunity to integrate, and that's the whole. All of the assessments are sort of built around that. They have employability skills, that ability to thrive in the workplace. So at the end of each course, if a learner does complete a course, they will earn what we call a micro-credential. And a micro-credential, it is typically shorter than a full-time or a part-time post-secondary program, but it specifically focuses on those in-demand skills and the knowledge that employers are looking for. So we are able to align these courses directly with future employment opportunities. And of course, they are online and completely self-directed. Each learner has the opportunity to gain 9 micro-credentials. And again, if they do complete the 9 micro-credentials, they have an opportunity to potentially move on to that 200-hour placement. Throughout the learning experience, the learners are going to have access to different types of support, including human-centered support from a learning support specialist, an employment consultant, as well as myself as the training specialist. So although it is self-directed, they do have an opportunity to connect with us if they have any questions or if they need any type of clarification moving forward. At this moment, we have seen 4 of our learners actually complete 3 courses. The feedback we are receiving is that it has been a good learning experience, and that they're very eager to move on to the work placement if that is an opportunity for them. I'm just going to quickly check the chat to make sure there's no questions. Awesome. If you have any questions about the learner experience or about the courses themselves, as Anne-Marie said, you can put them in the Q&A section, or you can email me or any member of the program team.
Thank you, Erica. I'm going to take a moment and review the employer experience. That's why you're here today, is to understand this piece. So our goal is to engage and have a minimum of 12 employers nationally, offering 40 placements for our learners in one of the 4 participating provinces. So again, Ontario, British Columbia, Alberta, and Nova Scotia. Learners who are interested in a placement must reside in one of those provinces. The focus will be on entry-level positions. However, we do want to see employers advocate for potentially beyond entry-level and advancement within the organization. The focus is not industry specific. That's often a question we get. We've kept it broad to engage with as many employers as possible. The placements themselves can be in person, virtual, and either full-time or part-time, depending on your workforce needs. Employers will be supported by way of wage subsidies for a maximum of 200 hours, as well as supports to the learner, including personal protective equipment, if required, and accommodation requirements. If an employer wishes to offer work beyond 200 hours, they are absolutely encouraged to do so. Employers interested in the program will also be offered training. 3 levels. Tier 1 training is for any employer who might be interested, regardless of whether they can offer a placement or not. This training is being offered in collaboration with the Ontario Disability Employment Network, ODIN, and will highlight the importance of hiring for inclusivity, and will cover all disabilities with some focus on deaf and hard of hearing individuals. This training is being offered monthly, starting on Monday, which is the first session, June 26th at 1 p.m., and will be offered monthly until February. So if you are not able to make June's session, when you register, and we'll make sure that the registration link is included in the chat, you will be able to see the other dates for each month that follows June. Tier 2 training will be offered to those employers who register in the ANTE program as being willing to offer a placement to our learners. The training is online and self-directed and will enhance employers' knowledge and understanding specifically about the deaf and hard of hearing community, communication best practices, safety considerations, and accommodations, including accessible technologies. The third and final tier of training will be offered to those who have completed Tier 2 and will be scheduled close to when the work placement is commencing. This training will offer an opportunity through facilitated and guided discussions to answer questions that employers might have from Tier 2 training, questions about the upcoming work placement, and also experience firsthand some of the accommodation supports that their new employees will need. Throughout the process, employers can expect to be supported by various members of the project team, including Mohawk College's employment consultant, outreach partners in each of the provinces, and the core project team members. We've touched on many points today, so I think it's best that we leave you with a few slides about the benefits to you as an employer in participating in this program. The first is advancing your organization's commitment to inclusion. Oftentimes, inclusion of the disability community is forgotten. It's important to ensure that individuals in this community are treated like every other employee and feel like they truly belong in an organization. You will get to meet and liaise with a talented group of people from the deaf and hard of hearing community through job matching, as well as interviews. The learners that have gone through this program and their commitment will help address your future workforce and talent needs. And finally, you gain access to disability confidence and accessibility training resources that are specific to the deaf and hard of hearing. Prior to moving to questions, I'll hand it over to Nadine, who will review how you can get involved and/or support the project going forward. Nadine?
Thank you, Anne-Marie. If you would like to participate and get involved in the ANTE program as an employer, you can reach out to the ANTE project team by emailing anteprogram@cha.ca. The email is located in the chat. You can also visit our website directly, where you will find a registration link for employers as well as learners. We also encourage you to follow us on our socials for updates and share the information with your respective networks. All the links have been added to the chat for easy access.
Thank you, Nadine. We do have time for questions, and in order for me to best facilitate that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see all of you and see the chat. So as a reminder, you can put your questions in the Q&A section as well as in the chat. I'm just going to do a quick scan to make sure that I have not missed anything. I see that some of you have put in some skills that you feel are required for the job vacancies that you have. Customer service skills, multitasking, admin. Someone else talked about having lived experience with a disability, familiarity with human rights model. I have a question here. So what are some common or general accommodations needed when employing someone who is deaf and hard of hearing? That's a great question, and actually an excellent forum to talk about, because we have a couple of them on this call today. For deaf individuals whose first language is ASL, we use ASL interpreters. You will note on this call, as an example, there are two. So oftentimes, depending on the type of meeting, how many participants there are, and how much interaction there is, you may require more than one. A second accommodation, and this obviously speaks to individuals, and this can be used either in person or virtually, is CART services. So oftentimes, platforms like Zoom, Teams, Google Meets, there's probably a lot more that I'm not thinking of right now, have automated captioning. And while they seemingly do a good job, they are not as accurate for individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing, and CART is often preferred. Another common one that is used is a transcription application on a cell phone. They can easily be downloaded, and an individual can utilize that, speak into the phone. It will transcribe what you're saying, and then you can show that transcription to the individual you're communicating with. Those are some. Have I missed any, Erica?
There's many, many different types of accommodations. And I mean, some of them that you just mentioned are definitely some of the most popular. But I think when it comes to accommodation, what the most important thing is to sit down and to ask the questions and see what each individual may prefer. In some instances, some people read lips, for example, and don't require or don't want an interpreter in person. So it really is demonstrating your commitment to everyone and giving them an equal opportunity to disclose what types of accommodations would most benefit them. And that may also change in different types of scenarios too. So there are lots of different resources available to understand and recognize the different types of accommodations. And if you move forward with, say, a placement opportunity, both Mohawk College and CHA, as well as any outreach partner in your respective area, should be able to assist you in identifying what those services are and how to utilize them. In addition, I see some questions around cost. We can also recommend different types of funding opportunities or other types of subsidies that may be able to support you if you feel that those costs are high.
Thank you, Erica. And to extend further, someone has asked specific to the work placement and whether or not costs would be covered for captioning and interpreting. Certainly during the interview stage, onboarding, and key meetings, there are funds available to support the individuals who are on the work placement. This does not mean that there will be an interpreter with an individual who may use ASL as their first language the entire time they are at work. And that's some of the job readiness workshops that Mohawk College will be running to ensure that individuals understand the work environment that they're going into. The project team is working to identify several options to ensure that both the learner and the employer feel properly supported. We have a question here. I train disability awareness to accessibility offices. Can I take this training to help prepare colleges for student placement? Yes, you can. You can certainly join us on the Tier 1 training. And then if you're interested in learning more about access to the other training, you can contact us at the ANTE program email. Lilica has asked how do you match the candidate to the placement opportunity? That's a great question. We talked about job matching. There's lots of conversations that are happening at intake at Mohawk College. Both the eligibility for the program and suitability. During those discussions, the employment consultant gauges what the career interests and goals of the learners are. Those are cataloged and shared with the outreach partners. And the outreach partners make every effort to try and find employment that will offer, it's not a guarantee, that might offer a match to their career goals. Individuals who are matched to certain employers and work placement opportunities will then be interviewed by the employer. So I think that's an important piece. These individuals will not be forced upon you. You do have the opportunity to interview them. There's learning for both sides, confidence building for the learner who is deaf and hard of hearing and may have experienced some negative circumstances through the interview and application process, as well as learning for the employer on adjustments they might need to make in their recruitment process. Once the individual has been interviewed, it is up to the employer to place the learner on their payroll. So you're taking them on as an employee. If there is not a match, then you re-engage with the employment consultant or the outreach partner and advise them of that, and we will look for a different match. Laura is asking a question, can CHA facilitate FM devices for people who work in person? That's something that we can look at if it's a specific accommodation that that individual requires. We will have to look at that on a case-by-case basis, but as mentioned previously, there is some funding available to support the individuals in the accommodations that they might require. I am over in the Q&A now. What happens if I require support during placement time? For example, a question about accessibility practice, how to go about a certain accommodation request. I think Erica touched on this already. This is one of the reasons why the placements must take place in the provinces where we have outreach partners, because those outreach partners are the individuals who can attend the work directly in person if need be, or connect with you quickly. The project team, specifically the employment consultant and CHA's team, myself and Nadine, are also available. So all of those contacts, once the placement is in place and you know, the work has begun, will be shared with you with respect to who you can contact. There's a question, who are the outreach partners other than nonprofit contractors or CHA staff? So it may have been missed in Richard's opening. So we have partners in the 4 provinces. So I'll start west. I don't know why I keep putting Ontario first. I suppose it's because I live in Ontario. So apologies to the West Coast. So in British Columbia, our outreach partner is Vancouver Community College. Vancouver Community College already had a relationship with Mohawk College, and they deliver a program actually to support the deaf and hard of hearing. So they understand the community and the community needs. Our outreach partner in Alberta is our CHA Edmonton CHA network leader. Again, an individual who is hard of hearing and understands the community and their needs. In Ontario, we have an individual working for CHA National, but they're located in the GTA, specifically to try and engage both learners and employers in that area. And then finally, we have the Society of Deaf and Hard of Hearing Nova Scotians in Nova Scotia. Hopefully that helps. What is the rate of wage subsidy? Apologies if you already stated it. I did not. So on average, the total amount for any 200-hour placement is approximately $3,000. Bear with me as I think we have addressed all of the questions. So I just want to pause for one moment and make sure that there isn't any that I may have missed. Feel free to add them if I have. Does not appear that there are any further questions. Well, I thank you for your engagement, your involvement, and attending today's session. This concludes the information session. On behalf of the Canadian Hard of Hearing Association and Mohawk College, I want to thank everyone for joining us today, including the support from our ASL interpreters and CART services transcriptionists for their support as well. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.